We are live. We can continue now. Now we can continue.
Okay, everyone. This is SAS-K, Skeptics and Atheists Society of Kenya. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, feel free to like and subscribe. So today we're talking about democracy, and is democracy the best form of government? Yeah, so is democracy the best form of government? So yeah, just watch till the end and feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks. So now maybe I can start with asking you guys, when you hear democracy, what do you hear? And another question is, can I say democracy is easier said than done? So that is, when you hear democracy, what do you hear? Then is it easier said than done? Thanks. Feel free to raise your hands. Anyone? What's democracy to you? And is it a word it's easier said than done? Maybe Dorcas, you can start. Maybe. What do you hear? And is it easier said than done?
Okay, democracy. When I hear the word democracy, I think of the will of the people. A government that is for, of, and by the people, where every voice is heard, where the majority have their way and the minority have their say. So, when this is applied, we use the word democracy in groups and in corporations or businesses and also in government. But today's discussion was prompted by a government-related debate that we had on the group. So I think let me limit my definition to that. I think of democracy in government as a system where people are able, the citizens, the people being governed, are able to elect their leaders in a fair and transparent manner. So for that to happen, there has to be a system in place that ensures transparency and fairness. Okay, and in fact, democracy to me is very appealing because of that idea of fairness and justice. Yeah, and also respect for the rule of law. That's what I think of when I hear the word democracy. Is it easier said than done? Absolutely, it's easier said than done. It's very difficult to ensure that your country abides by democratic ideals through and through. There are so many obstacles that come in the way. And I don't even think there's any country that is perfectly democratic. I think there are some that are closer to the ideal than others. There are some that purport to be democracies, but they're not. Yeah, like our neighbors in TZ, what happened recently. So yeah, I think it's easier said than done because instating mechanisms to ensure that the citizens have their say is not easy. Yeah, and there'll always be forces that interfere to propagate their own interests. Yeah, let me stop there for now.
Thanks, Dorcas. Ex-Pastor Stano, when you hear democracy, what goes through your mind? And is it easier said than done? Ex-Pastor Stano.
Yeah, what I can say, democracy is giving people the free will to choose their leader and the winner is according to the majority. So the citizen have the right to choose their leader of their choice, and whoever win is the one who will take the seat. While the minority, they also have some say, although the majority have a way. So to me, democracy is very good when the law is implemented and when the leaders are not violating the law. But when they are violating the law, democracy is no longer a democracy.
So, Stano, is it fair to say it's easier said than done? What do you think?
Yeah, everything we say everything is easier to say than to do it. Even we say many things, but to implement them it's where we draw the line. So that is why we say democracy. We can call it democracy when we have done it practically, but not by saying we need democracy or we have democracy. We should see it by our demonstration or by our acts. The same case, whatever thing you say, whether you want to do something, it's easier to say than to do. So what we need is result than just the mere ones. Thank you.
Thanks, Stano. Jim?
So hi everyone.
Yeah, hi.
For me, I think democracy is it's one of the worst forms of government that has ever existed. One of the worst, and it's something. It's actually very unfortunate. It's something that was imposed to us by these wazungus. You know, we never used to have democracy in Africa. Although it's not the reason I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad because it was imposed on us. But I mean, if you find someone is forcing you to do something, it's not that they are, looking out for your best interests. In most cases, it's just like the same way religion was forced on us. Even democracy was forced on us. But we can also say even education was sort of forced on us. But education is a good thing. But when it comes to democracy, it is one of the worst. And in any case, democracy is also a scam. Because, I mean, you create a democracy that we are choosing our leader. We don't even choose our leaders. We are just, it's like a game, a mind game that they play at we chose Kasongo. It's because they only, in a population of like 50 million, we were to choose only, four guys. But I'm sure there are very many other people who will have done a better job. But now we are forced to. In fact, there were two. The other two guys were not very serious people. So anyway, to simplify, democracy is a terrible system of government, and it is a scam.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Jim, what if I ask you? It's what I said, easier said than done. As in, it's something good, but human beings have failed to make it work. What do you think? It's supposed to be a good thing, but human beings have spoiled it. Is that fair?
No, democracy is not a good thing. And the reason
Why,
it
Jim?
fails,
Why?
Democracy is like religion. It is a bad thing. Because let me tell you, let me ask you, why did you vote last time?
Yes, I did. I voted.
You voted for Kasongo.
No, I did not him. No, not him. I was worried. Not him. Nope.
Who did you vote for?
I went to Raila because I saw Uhuru was warning us. Uhuru warned us, so I was careful because Uhuru knows Kasongo more. So I took his warning seriously.
Why would you even listen to Uhuru? And Uhuru is even worse than Kasongo.
What Uhuru knew him better, eh? Uhuru knew him better, and he warned us. The guys didn't listen.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry. What was your question?
Yeah, can I say a democracy is a good thing, but human beings have failed to make it work. Is that okay?
Oh,
It's supposed to be a good thing, but we failed. As human
mm,
beings, we failed to make it work. What do you think?
it sounds good, but it is not a good thing. It is a terrible thing. That's why I'm saying it's like religion. Even religion it makes you feel good, but it's a bad thing. The way I'm saying it's a bad thing, why is it? Think of, let's say, a big company like Safaricom. The way it's run professionally. Why is there no democracy in Safaricom? So they want to choose the next CEO. Let them say, like, all the workers who work in Safaricom, from the watchman to the top management, let us vote for the next Bob Collymore or whoever, because that cannot work. Why should it now purport to be working? And that's why we are ending up with the Kasongos and the Trumps and the Samias of this world.
Jim, I'm always against comparisons. Now Safaricom in a country, surely Jim. How do you compare those two? A country in a company. Come on. That won't work.
No,
Safaricom
country is
in a whole country.
important. Yes, a country is even more important. Why do you want to have a say on who is going to be the president? And you see, the issue is not even Kasongo. Me, I don't even blame him. The problem is the people who are voting, are they qualified to know who a good leader is? Because, I mean, if you voted for Kasongo, I think that even disqualifies you from ever voting. It should disqualify you from ever voting in your lifetime. Because the Kasongo that you're voting for, he had shown his colors. Like you say, Uhuru wonders. He has a history. He's someone who had even been taken to ICC for, for war crimes. But people still voted for him. So the problem is not even Kasongo. The problem is the process. Giving people who have no idea what a good leader is. You're just using emotions to it forward.
But okay, Jim, in fact, I'll ask question. We'll talk about monarchy. Monarchy. Can you say people were scared of Uhuru and Raila, like it's monarchy? That fear was there. That's why people chose Ruto. They were saying that these two people, their fathers were in the government from way back. So why them again? Was that fear genuine?
No, it's a very stupid fear. Again, it's the problem. Yeah, democracy. They are just using like very nice terms to become popular, to popularize themselves. Because he brought back Raila in government. Tried to bring back Uhuru. Even the other day, he brought back Gideon Moi. So what was he trying to tell us about the dynasty? I mean, that you can be a king, but you're a very good guy.
Okay, so thanks. Yeah. So yeah, just like Doka said, for me, the democracy, what I have is it's a system of government by the whole people or all the eligible members of our state, typically through elected representatives. Let me repeat it. Democracy is a system of government by the whole people or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. That's democracy. So I don't know. Thanks a lot, Jim. So Ndeve, you can add something.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
And Ndeve, please answer if it's easier said than done. Okay.
Yes, easier said than done. But for me, if democracy is by the people for the people, as the first just the description or the first thing about democracy, if you can say what is democracy, you would say by the people for the people. If the people are not involved through civic education, then you don't really have a democracy. You have got just something like a rogue, kind of a mongrel, kind of a democracy. And I think that is what mostly we have from the United States to the Muungano wa Tanzania, to the Republic of Kenya, to any democracy that you can name. The problem is not the democracy, but the problem is that the people are not engaged. They are not they're not engaged in civilly. Now, I see here in Canada that election day comes and the people are asked, you're going to vote so for whatever, and the candidate of your choice. People are never, usually they are never asked who you are going to vote for. The candidate of your choice. What do you know about the candidate of your choice and why are you going to vote for them? That is the end of the road for that question. That tells you that person ameamuka tu on election day and they are going to vote. Huyo mtu akai nyumbani because they are not engaged. They don't even know what they are going to vote. They are going to exercise their right to vote. But that is a very dangerous vote. Mtu kama umempatia, bunduki to do what? If they can't tell between a marauding lion and a lion that is just doing its own business, that person shouldn't have bunduki. So that's why I'm saying that, yeah, democracy, yeah, we can talk all we want about democracy, but the failure in that is in that people do not get civil education, or they are not interested in civic education. They're just interested in the game, the end game, which is that, oh, my candidate won. That is end game, right? So the hard part of democracy is the civic education, my opinion. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. So before Doka speaks, so like what Jim is saying, he said bad things about democracy. So now we have monarchy and oligarchy. Now monarchy is a system of government in which one person reigns, like a king or a queen. Yeah, I can repeat that. Monarchy is a system of government in which one person reigns, either king or a queen. Now, as Doka speaks, okay, so that's monarchy. Then also there's oligarchy. I think oligarchy is any form of government in which it's ruled by a few group of people. A group of people are the ones who are in control. Either they are rich or something, but it's run by a group of certain people, an elite. That's oligarchy. Now, what do you guys think of those two? Are they better than democracy? Can they work, or they are worse? Dockers.
Okay. Before I answer that question, I'd like to respond to Jim because I am a democracy advocate. I don't think democracy is perfect, but it is the best system we have of government. As Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for the other forms of government which we have tried from time to time. So the alternatives are worse. Democracy is the lesser evil. It is imperfect, of course, but it is the lesser evil compared to all the others. Why am I saying this? Firstly, because as an ideal in and of itself, it should be aspired to. There was a group, I believe it was in Iran, if not Iraq, I keep confusing those two countries, that came up with a group. There was another group that came up with a political group that had representation from various social classes, from various, I don't know whether it was ethnicities or other divisions in their country, various identities. It formed that group and said that these are the people that are going to govern you. And when the proposal was taken to the ground, everybody rejected it. And the committee responsible for selecting those people asked them, what is the issue? Don't these people represent who you are as citizens of Iraq? And they are very experienced. They have merit, and they're going to govern you in the best way possible. And those people said, we don't have a problem with the individuals themselves. It's the fact that we were not consulted. Who are you to patronizingly impose leadership on people. They are grown adults. It is their right to pick who will be in charge of them as an ideal. Democracy should be pursued in and of itself. That this is a virtue. You know, the way you say to tell the truth is a virtue, and it should be pursued in and of itself, regardless of the effects or whatever. It's just an innate quality we have in human beings that they want to have a voice. You don't want to be silenced or stifled. You want to have a voice. You want to speak up, and you want to see that your voice has been implemented. So that's one aspect. Another thing is that a democratic system is often one where, ideally speaking, like the ideal democratic system, not one that has been, let's say, corrupted, or leave alone the corrupt democratic systems, but a proper democratic system is one where there is the rule of law, where there is freedom of speech, where there is freedom of expression, where there are multi-party systems, where there is a plural, yeah, I've drunk soapy water, plurality of ideas. Yeah, that's a great place to live, a place where there is liberty. I would want to belong to a society like that. Those are fundamental components of a democratic society. But in any other form, those things are not guaranteed. Those aspects of freedom of speech, diverse ideas, and the respect for the rule of law, those are not aspects that are a must in the other forms of government. So I think I would want to live in a society where those features are present. And when Jim says it's not working, he was trying to give examples here in Kenya of Kasongo, and in the US of Trump. I can also give him examples of leaders that have been democratically elected and they are reasonable. They've brought about development. So we have different examples. We have examples for a democratic system, and we have good examples of leaders that were elected democratically, and we have bad examples of leaders that were elected democratically. However, the society in which one lives, which is a society which is undemocratic, is definitely a worse off society than one that is not democratic. And there's a simple solution to that problem of people electing bad leaders. As David said, it's civic education. Civic education, and also the get out to vote call. Because we had that problem in previous elections where young people are educated, but they're not motivated to go out and vote. So the people that go out and vote are maybe semi-illiterate, especially when it comes to civic matters. So they choose based on tribe or other superficial qualities. And the intellectuals are forced to go with the choice of the majority, which was an inferior choice. So we solve that problem through civic education. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. Let's not make people so stupid. Let's not make the public or citizens seem as though they are irredeemable. They can be educated, they can be sensitized about the dangers of voting along ethnic lines or voting along religious lines, and that can help to make the democratic outcome better. Last thing, I know I've spoken for long, but last thing, in fact, I'm on the move. on oligarchies or the elite, that is a dangerous form of governance, because very often when power is concentrated in small hands, it ends up being abused. Those people start to use resources, or they start to change structures such that they can cement their position in leadership. They only want to cater for themselves rather than for the common citizen. So I don't support an oligarchy. And most importantly, I don't support a monarchy or even a dictatorship that is maybe gotten through military coups. I don't, all of those forms of government are highly dangerous because of the corruptible nature of human beings. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorcas. Okay, Jim, as you speak, what's your take on monarchy and oligarchy? Are they better than democracy? Since you're so anti-democracy, what's your monarchy and oligarchy?
Yeah, I think monarchs are possibly much better than democracy. I think they can give us
Kindly,
better
Stano, mute. We are getting feedback from you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Dorcas, I have a question for you before I go on. You said that there are some democracies, that have elected good leaders. At least me, I gave examples. Maybe you can give us an example of a leader who was, like a good leader who was elected democratically. And I hope if you know about that leader, let's look at what he did. And perhaps maybe you might change my view. Because I still stick to my guns. Democracy is terrible and it's a scam. You asked about oligarchy, and yeah, I think oligarchy and monarchs, I think that is a better option than democracy. Yeah.
Jim, you have to please explain why. Kindly explain. Thanks.
See, one of the problems with democracy, the best thing about democracy is also the worst thing about democracy. The best thing about democracy is that, let's say if you get a bad leader, let's say like Kasongo, the maximum that he can go is 10 years. And then in 2032, he'll just exit. That's the good thing with democracy. Now, the other thing that is bad, the same thing is also bad about democracy, because we might have a very good leader who, after 10 years, he's doing everything, he's building roads, he's not corrupt, but after 10 years, he must exit. Now, that's another problem. And I can even give an example. The former Makueni governor, why do I forget it? Alikuwa anaitwa nani? Kivutha Kibwana. I don't know. I hear he was a very good guy. In fact, after he finished his being governor, he went back to being a professor in, I don't know, is it this time, some university. So I hear he's a very good guy. And now that's the problem with democracy. If he was such a good leader, and he should just have continued. Now we have clowns who took over. Yeah, so democracy, the best thing about democracy is also the worst thing about democracy. But if, let's say Makueni had a monarch and Kivutha Kibwana was the king of that region, now those people will be having, a better leader for a very long time.
But can you say, Jim, Nani, that governor was just one in many. He was good, but one in many.
The problem is democracy. That's why I'm saying it's the best thing. The best thing about it is also the worst thing about it.
Yeah, because Jim, what if you're a bad leader? He was good. What if you're bad? Utoke. He was good, fine. And a bad leader, siatoke pia. Ama.
Yeah, but you see, let's say if it's a monarch and you become a bad leader, you're a bad king. Right now, people are also very well informed. It's not like, back in the days when, people used to live in fear. But if you're a king and you start being corrupt, I mean, you can just anyway go for demonstrations and it kick you out of your palace. So, yeah, and I think the other problem with democracy, now you go for 10 years, you stop. If you have a king, let's say, if you have a king, he can, there's a limit to how much you can steal. Now the problem is you have Uhuru, he outsteals, he knows he only has 10 years to steal. So he steals as much as he can. Akimaliza, now Kasongo starts from zero. He steals as much as he can. Tungeachia too, like, let's say, I don't know, one person to be the king. There's a limit to how much you will, to how much greed you will steal. And part of the reason they actually steal is because in 2032, you've heard about how much it costs to run an election, to run for president. I think it's in the tune of 30 billion or something. I once heard Jalango say that 1 billion can only last 2 weeks in a campaign. So you need like 30, 40 billion to run. And that's why these guys actually steal, because they have to prepare for the next election. You should have democracy. So let's bring back kings.
Yeah, Jimmy, I agree with you. That's a strong point. Campaigns are very expensive. That's true. They use a lot of money. That's now when they go into power, they want to steal it back. They want to recover what they've spent. That's very true.
And they bring the country to a standstill. Hii pesa tungetumia kujenga mabarabara. It could be like Singapore.
Yeah, that's a bad weakness of democracy. That's a bad weakness. Ndeve, do you mind your take on monarchy and oligarchy? Ndeve, what's your take on that, if you don't mind? Okay, fine. Well, how about Stanu? Are you there? Stanu, your take on monarchy and oligarchy. Are they better than democracy? Stanu.
Democracy is far much better than every other form of any other form. So I prefer democracy no matter what.
Okay, fine. Okay, Dorcas.
Okay. Firstly, let me respond to Jim because he was asking which leaders do you know that are good and they were democratically elected. You see, this is the problem with human beings. We have a bias for negative outcomes. The moment something negative happens, we remember that one. And when something good happens, it kind of falls to the wayside. We don't really focus on it. I think that is evolutionary, because for survival, you need to elevate negative experiences compared to positive ones. You need to be more sensitive to negative experiences in order to survive, especially during the caveman days. So I unfortunately I don't have their particular names, but I can just say the presidents or the prime ministers of most of the Nordic countries, because in those countries systems are working. People have minimal levels of corruption, and things are going on as they should. So Akina Sweden, Akina Denmark, etc., those ones are definitely model countries when it comes to democracy. Then I also wanted to mention the aspect of monarchies and why it is problematic. In fact, look at the history of the world and ask yourself, how did democracies come to be in the modern era? Yes, they've always been there. Even during ancient Greece, we had democratic ideals that came up. We know of philosophers like Plato who advocated for it. But in the modern era, like 17th century, 18th century,
democracy arose because of failures of the monarchy. In the French Revolution, people were unhappy about monarchs because monarchs were focusing on themselves. They were taxing the citizens to death. They were living lavishly. They were engaging in extravagant wars, while the citizens were left to wallow in poverty. So that is why they staged a revolution and said, we no longer want people to be chosen on the basis of their ancestry, because that's what a monarchy is. Somebody becomes a king and queen because they were born in the quote unquote right bloodline. You see that if Jim's objection to a democracy is that we don't pick the best man or woman for the job, we don't focus on merit, then monarchies are the worst, because your birth, your birthplace or your genetics, your ancestry has nothing to do with your leadership capabilities. But those ones, they just force it on an individual as long as they were born by royalty. And it's very susceptible to abuse. Monarchies, in fact, have died off in the modern era because of that problem. People are selfish. As they say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So monarchies have that great disadvantage. Now, the last point I wanted to make is on the issue of elections. Jim was saying that elections are bad because we can get rid of a good leader. I think it is actually a positive thing, because the more you stay in power, the less effective you become. We've seen it all around the African continent, starting with our neighbors in Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, down south, Robert Mugabe. We have numerous leaders that have been in power for decades. Some of them have ruled their countries longer than some of us have been alive. And they are running those countries to the ground. Jim is saying there's a limit to how much you can loot. No, there isn't. These people can loot with no mercy for decades. They distribute resources to their families and only their families, or the people or their cronies, and they don't care about the rest. We need to have term limits. We need to give people only a definite amount of time to rule, such that they continue, they try to bring about maximum good within the duration that they have. So I'm sorry, I don't agree with Jim at all. I think the evils of monarchies and oligarchies far outweigh the evils of democracy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. Jim, just respond to that, what she said about a monarchy. Like your bloodline, in fact, honestly, that appears worse than choosing. You can choose the wrong leader, true. But not your bloodline determines that you're the leader for forever and ever. I think that's worse. What do you think? Better to choose somebody wrong and to keep on going on and on and on. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, if you have good systems, like a good judiciary, so long as the king is not above the law, and we have systems at work, it will not even matter who is the president or who is the king. So I'll leave it to that. And then it's weird that Dorcas, who is a very strong proponent of democracy, cannot even name one good democratically elected leader. Just one, even just one in the whole world. Okay, she said about the Nordic countries. Who are these people? I mean, we don't even know the president, but although to be fair, in the Nordic countries, like in Sweden, it's because of the level of education and the systems that they have. I mean, systems that work. So you can even have a bad leader, but like someone who wants to steal, but because they know the repercussions of what is going to happen to you. you're going to go to jail. Even in China, the same thing. You know, if you steal, it doesn't matter whether you're a president or who you are. You're going to get you're going to prison, or you're going to get hanged. So anyway, let me just leave it at that. But I was just hoping Dorcas would give us at least one a good leader mwenye tunajua, so that we can do research and see why they are good. Me, I can give like a list of thousands of bad democratically elected people.
And Jim, any good monarchies? Do you have examples of good monarchies?
Yeah, monarchies. I think like Saudi Arabia is okay, although now with them it's because of the religion, but the country is there. It's somehow developed, and they have a king. No, he's a king. Yeah, yeah, and they're very well developed. We are now hearing of Burkina Faso. I mean, they stopped being democratic, and they are having a military leader who seems to be working. So it's not about whether it was democratically elected or not. We need even the Singapore that we keep singing about. That guy was a dictator. I don't think there was any democracy there. Even in China is not a democracy, but now it's poised to become the superpower in the next few years, because they're not doing this nonsense of democracy. They're dealing with meritocracy. That's what we should be aiming for.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So maybe I can ask you guys a question here. Being a dictatorship, is that an option, or it's just bad? Being a dictatorship, is that an option, or it's just bad? It's just a bad thing flat out. Thanks. Jim, you want to talk? Oh, okay. Yeah, so about dictators, is that an option, or it's something that's just should never happen? Yeah, or it works sometimes. Like Gaddafi, they say was a dictator, but he did so many things for Libya. In fact, he had free education, healthcare. Then had in the country became literate. It was 30%. Then it went up to 80%. So like Gaddafi, people say he helped Libya a lot, but they still say he was a dictator. So is it an option? Even in Libya, women's rights went up. Women were upgraded. So I don't know about, maybe does it work sometimes, or it's just something bad? Thanks. Anyone on dictators? Or maybe Jim, what do you think about being a dictatorship? What do you think? Is it an option?
Yeah, sometimes dictatorship can work, like this Singapore. The Lee Kuan Yew, I think he was the president of Singapore from 1960 to around 1990, that over like 30 years. So, but now he made Singapore to be what it is. Even closer home, Kagame, they say he's a dictator. There's no democracy. Okay, he is democratically elected, but he's also somehow like a dictator. But you can see the difference between, let's say, Rwanda and Burundi. You know, they're two countries which are very alike, which are very similar. But because of dictatorship of Kagame, at least, you know, it's a place that you even want to visit. Yeah, so dictatorship can work. When it works very well. The problem with democracy, when it works, it has to pause after every 10 years or 5 years. And you can even be a good leader. Like they say, you know, let's say someone like Kibaki was, okay, people say he used to work, but they say he was one of the best presidents in Kenya. But in 2007, he was actually voted out because of democracy and tribalism. That's the reason he was kicked out, not because he was not performing, but people still voted him out. Then he had to rig himself in using this democracy again. Yeah, so we are dictatorship might, sometimes it does work, like in China and Singapore.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, you mentioned Kagame. What's your take on Gaddafi? Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, Gaddafi was a good. Then he was killed by.
Sorry, you're breaking, Jim. You're breaking. You broke a bit. Sorry. Jim. Jim. You're breaking, eh? You're breaking. Okay,
Who were elected by
Jim,
democracy.
Jim, we missed
Obama killed Gaddafi.
We missed you. Jimmy, we missed you. Just repeat. You are off. You're off for a while.
Yeah.
Just
Can
start again. You've gone again. We can't hear. Okay. Maybe as he comes back, Doctors can go. Most of you on being a dictator. Does it work or it's just a bad thing? Doctors can go. Doctors.
Yes. Absolutely not. The track record for dictatorship is very bad. We can find a few good apples, a few quote unquote benevolent dictators like Traore of Burkina Faso or the Singaporean leader, I think Lin Kuan something, but the Singaporean leader. We can find a few examples of benevolent dictators, but most dictators are oppressive. There's no freedom of speech. There's no freedom of expression. The institutions are weakened. There are extrajudicial killings. The media is not allowed to be themselves. It is hell on earth to live in a dictatorship. If you are in doubt, just go to North Korea. Just go and live in North Korea and you'll realize hell is a place on earth. Yeah, a dictatorship is the worst form of leadership and it's not sustainable. I remember we had this discussion like 2 years ago, and I remember reading out the statistics for that same Burkina Faso. It has had numerous leaders, numerous presidents. All of them were dictators, or all of them came into power through military coups, and their countries were the country was suffering with war. It was dealing with poverty, with crime, and so many problems because of those dictatorships. So those people were not following the rule of law or democratic systems to elect their leaders. The leaders were forcing themselves into power. That is usually how most dictatorships are formed. They force themselves into power, or they abuse the institutions that exist, like the electoral process or the judiciary. Even what Jim was talking about, that a dictatorship can work if you have strong institutions. Those are not requirements for the other systems, for things like monarchies or things like oligarchies. Those are not requirements for those systems of government. But for a democratic system of government, there must be strong institutions. There must be a strong electoral commission that is transparent and accountable. There must be separate bodies of power like the judiciary and parliament to hold the executive to account. Those to me are very desirable. If you want to live in a peaceful country, then go for a democracy, because a dictatorship, it will usually lead to the opposite problem. What else did I want to say? I wanted to give an example of a good leader. I gave examples. I said the leaders in the Nordic countries. I don't know their names, but those countries are working. But then there's one individual from Latin America called Bukele, who is the president. I don't know whether currently he is, but I think I watched a documentary about 1.5 years ago and saw that he's the president of El Salvador. And that to me was a successful democratic leader because El Salvador was suffering with the problem of gangs. There were so many gangs who are terrorizing citizens, who are collecting quote unquote taxes from the citizens. People who are unsafe to even just go out and do business because you don't know if a gang member will meet you and they will shoot you down or they'll kidnap you. Life was really difficult in El Salvador. But this guy started as a mayor. Yeah, he started as a mayor. Then he did great things. He enacted numerous reforms as the mayor, and he was a young man. People relatively unknown in the political world. He made some drastic changes in the city, such that people were telling him, you know what, I think we should run for president. So when he wanted to run for president, he couldn't because the systems that be were very bureaucratic. There's a party system there. I think it's a dual party system, and they were not allowing him to stand for the popular party. So he decided to go for the independent seat. He stood as an independent, and guess what? The people elected him. As soon as they elected him, he made massive reforms in in the law enforcement field, and he was able to clamp down on gangs in those countries. Citizens were speaking after his elections, and they were saying that they love it, they love the changes that he has made, and they are very happy about it. So yeah, that's an example that I wanted to give. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. Jim mentioned Korea. North Korea is called, they use the word democratic to describe themselves. But Jim, is that enough? Just because they say they're democratic, you said what? Their name is a Democratic Republic of Korea. So Jim, that means nothing. Does that mean that they're democratic? Jim, that's their name, but what does it mean? Jim, are you there? Jim? Okay, he's gone. So, Dorcas, you read his message, yeah? He's saying North Korea called Democratic Republic of Korea. So, I don't know, that's supposed to mean something, I don't know. Okay, Eugene?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, just go.
Okay. Okay. I think a lot has been said. I actually joined late, but yeah, I think Jim already knows this. I'm a heavy critic of democracy, and yes, I think now we are at a different question, but I can just compile everything that I had. Okay, the problem with democracy, you see, it seemingly looks good, but it has a lot of flaws that most of the time it can be ignored or can be deliberately left out. So when someone says that democracy is the best and that other forms like dictatorship are not sustainable, I think it's a little bit nuanced, because what do you mean by successful and sustainable? When you look at democracies, yeah, while we know a few democracies that have actually lasted for a while, and lasting for a while doesn't mean that everyone is happy. It has its own flaws. Like corruption can heavily thrive under democracy, just as it can thrive under dictatorship. And it really boils down to the kind of leader that a country really has. When look, for example, our state here, where we call ourselves democratic, You see, it's really dangerous because it gives everyone, including the people who can't really make informed decisions, the power to, elect people in power. And this actually powers politicians. And politicians are not really, they're not, I wouldn't really call them moral or good people. They're very controversial people. And they like to, to lie to the masses. And the fact that they lie to the masses, they manipulate the masses, they get ways to get into power. And once they're in power, they can now bribe the same masses. And I think Jim had actually talked about it. I think the fact that, it's expensive doing campaigns. So you have to steal more. And then the money that you've stolen, you now bribe people to get in power. So it's a circus. There is nothing like it's the best system out there. It's actually worse. It's actually cringe. And someone who existed thousands of years before us already saw through this. In as much as they say that Athens is the birthplace of democracy, we had Athenians who actually saw the flaws in democracy, like Socrates. Socrates heavily criticized democracy. In as much as we can say that, Athens, it was the birthplace, everything didn't go well under democratic Athens. Funny enough. And I think Socrates saw the flaws in it. He saw how the masses can be manipulated and duped by, these evil politicians, these people who sell. I think there's a word I'm forgetting. Yeah, like they come and lie to the masses to get in power. Once they're in power, they do the same thing. So this is not new. And now, I'm not really saying that dictatorship is the best as well. Dictatorship also has its flaws, but to also say that dictatorship is not sustainable, again, it's not really accurate. We actually have some dictatorship that have actually lasted for long. When you look at China, China became industrialized thanks to dictatorship. When you look at what Mao Zedong did and what now Xi Jinping is doing, in as much as you can say that, human rights, or freedom of or human freedoms, they're being suppressed, all that. But when you look at the progress being made, how the economic power is getting, it's getting out there. So this is thanks to their strict dictatorship. So I wouldn't say that dictatorship is entirely bad. What's really bad about dictatorship is the kind of leader you have there. Just as I can say democracy is not entirely bad, but when you have someone like, one term there, it's not even. And personally, I would say both democracy and dictatorship, they're not really the thing. And I think we should progress to something else, something better, something innovative, like even getting rid of humans running things, because humans are biased. They have their own flaws. We had a country, I think it's
You're breaking, Eugene. You're breaking.
forgotten the name, that
You're
they had
breaking.
an AI as an MP for procurement. I mean, not an. Hello, am I audible right now?
You're back now. Yeah,
Hello?
you're back.
Am I
Yeah,
audible
you're
now?
back.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back. Continue.
Okay.
You're back.
I was saying, I remember the country, I think it was Azerbaijan, that, they sat down and were like, you know what, whether we have humans running these offices, there will always be this bias. A human is emotional. A human can actually favor his friends, his family, his relatives, his tribe, his ethnicity, his race. So when you want a system that serves everyone without bias, just do away with the human factor. If you're awarding tenders, do away with the human factors that will award friends, will award families, will award, ethnicities or the same race. Have something that awards things on the basis of merit, like an algorithm, like an AI. So I think it's better we should embrace the future and do away the same reason someone thinks that it's okay to do away with monarchy. Yes, I think it's about time we do away with democracy as well. And democracy has its flaws again. When you look at things like, things how we spend our money, time and everything, it consumes a lot of time, it consumes a lot of funds for nothing, just to end up with, for instance, just to end up with one term. After we've spent billions, campaigning, and these campaigns make people corrupt, make people steal things. So just go with these humans, have a system there that is not really attracted to money and shady deals. Have an AI. As much as it sounds absurd, it's actually called an algocracy. And to me, it's actually the best. because we are now living at the edge of the future. So why can't we not move on? Just as we want to move on from monarchy, we can move away from democracy. So that's all I can say.
Thanks, Eugene. So, Eugene, what's your take on monarchy and oligarchy? What do you think about them?
Now, when it comes to monarchy, I think personally monarchy is outdated. It doesn't really make sense to have one human and treat him like he's a god, he's above everyone else and has the right to rule just because he can. It's a little bit archaic. I think it's pretty stupid, for lack of a better word. So monarchy to me, it's not really the thing to go to. It should be done away with again. Because it doesn't make sense to have someone's family, irrespective of their mental capabilities, they just rule you because of their bloodline. That's the most absurd thing I've ever came to realize or I've ever had. So it doesn't make any sense. Monarchy should be done away with. If anything, if it's a must we have monarchies, then let it be ceremonial. And I wouldn't really even want it to be ceremonial because it doesn't make sense to have someone to rule over people just because of their bloodline. No merit, just bloodline. Just because you are lucky, you have royal blood. That's some weird aspect of mankind. Yeah. So monarchy doesn't cut it. Now, when it comes to oligarchy as well, it doesn't also cut it. Oligarchy is just, the ruling class, so people who just want to rule because they have funds and everything. So power is consolidated and it's consolidated within this ruling class. So again, that's not really the way to go. So to me, I'm not convinced that whether it's democracy, whether it's dictatorship, whether it's any other thing apart from algocracy, because algocracy, just as I earlier said, it does away with the human factor, and the human factor has a lot of problems. It has bias, it has tribalism, it has prejudice, it has everything nasty that can make a leader to turn into something else, whether it's a democratic leader like Kasongo, or whether it's an authoritarian leader like the others. Now, lastly, before I finish, when it comes to someone like Gaddafi, Gaddafi is, I can say the best word is controversial, but I wouldn't say he was bad or good. If anything, he was both. So him ruling, yes, he ruled Libya with an iron fist. He was a dictator, per se, yeah. But being a dictator and the fact that he did the way he did, I think it's also because of what he did. Yeah. He lay in bed with the West and then he got beat for it. Yeah. It's not that he was enemies with the West from day one. No, these guys were actually friends and they just had a fallout. So he got ousted. So to say that, what, he got, this and that, it's not really accurate. We know how power works, and democracies are in bed with dictatorships. They're not mortal enemies, as the medias out there try to say. But yeah, these are just ideologies. But the person of Gaddafi, I think someone said that women rights, yeah. When you look at women rights, he actually tried to improve it, but not entirely, because under his reign, women rights were still limited, in as much as overall it was actually a plus, but it wasn't really there yet. So Gaddafi was just controversial. He wasn't good or bad, and he got what he deserved. But that's me. Yeah, thank you.
So, thanks, Eugene. Eugene, earlier we had said democracy, it's easier said than done. So what we were saying, like for me, apart from it's very expensive. These campaigns, politicking, it's very expensive. But just put that aside and say democracy is supposed to work, but human beings have messed it up. Is that accurate? It's us who have messed it up. It's something that's good, but we messed it up. What's that? Yeah.
We've messed it up because it's actually expected. It's actually expected. You see, human beings, we have flaws. We have our own flaws as humans. And it's not a justification or anything, but that's a fact. So to say that we messed it up, I think we shouldn't be shocked, because we mess up everything, whether it's democracy, whether it's dictatorship. Under dictatorship, we have famines. We can actually weaponize famines. Under democracy, we can't weaponize famine, but we can weaponize corruption. We can weaponize poverty. So it's like the same thing but different shades or different hues. So the fact that the human factor is there, I think we can approach a cure when you do away with the human factor and bring in an algocracy that is not biased, is not, it can't be corrupted, it doesn't have negative emotions to do this and that. So I think if we do away with the human factor, I think it's time we move on, we evolve, lack of a better word. Yeah.
Thanks, Eugene. Dorcas, I want to ask you a quick question about Gaddafi. When you hear that women gained access to education, jobs, and legal protections, and also he had female guards, like many of his bodyguards are women, what do you think about him, Dorcas? Do you think positive about Gaddafi when you hear that as a feminist? Dorcas, are you there? Dorcas?
I don't think she's there.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Let's go to, okay, now about Kenya, about like Moi and Kenyatta. For me, like Moi and Kenyatta ran like a one-party country somehow, somehow. Then if Moi made it worse. But now, what I think, like for Moi, at least Moi gave up power. He was there for 24 years, but at least he was able to, he was willing to give up power. So I don't know. Then I also hear that the coup messed him up. He was a good guy, but the coup made him change. Well, that's debatable. So I don't know. Like you compare Moi and Kenyatta. What do you guys think about the leadership? Was a dictator who was good? For me, Moi, I think, was messed by the coup. He became wild because of the coup, but at least he gave up power willingly. He gave up the. He said that I've left. He apologized and asked for forgiveness. So I don't know. What do you guys think about Moi and Kenyatta? Thanks. Debbie can go.
Just
Debbie.
a little point, Muriuki. What power did Moi or Kenyatta give up willingly again?
Yeah, no, Moi could have refused Ndeve. Moi could have refused like they do. So, Moi,
But we had already repealed. But we had already repealed the section that said that you couldn't have other parties. And then we had put term limits. He wasn't willing. It was not willing. It was not willingly.
But can I say he had the power to refuse? At that time, he had the power to say no. He could do that at that time. Yeah.
Well, the law was overwhelmingly, the tide. Let me just say that the tide and the time it was such that he couldn't. Watu hawakuwa wanamtaka anyway.
Yeah.
And the law, well, after the repeal of the law and the term limits, he actually alikuwa amepiga ukuta. It's not that he was willing. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I meant, okay, I don't know. I'm saying, I repeat again, here the army, they're all behind him at that time. The military, were all behind him. So he'd have said that, I refuse, utafanya. He could do that like happening in some countries. At that moment, when the army is behind you, you can tell guys, I won't do it. But he did it. At least he did that. Give him some credit for that. At least he did that.
Yeah, maybe mimi ni mtoto wa hao wakati I cut my teeth with those two people that I was I was very against their ways. But anyway, he could actually, yes, he could have totally messed the country by refusing not to go, and then we fragment and we fight, because that is definitely what would have happened. Kama, if he would have refused, then his loyalists would have, yes, possibly. It is possible, but it is the path that we didn't take. And maybe I am naive to think that the reason we didn't take that path is because of the law and the term limit. That probably is naive of me to think that is why he agreed to have a final term and yeah. and let himself be defeated and humiliated, because he couldn't believe when he realized that actually Kenyans didn't love him, they wanted him gone. It was the biggest humiliation for that person. Kenyatta was lucky he never had to face that. He died, but he would have had the same humiliation to find that people actually didn't like him. So yeah, you probably are right that he chose the way for not splitting the country. Thank you.
And then do you think the coup messed him up? It's debatable, but do you think he was a good guy, but the coup messed him up? What do you think? Your opinion?
Kwani hiyo kiti ni ya mama yake? Who messed him how?
The coup.
If you can't play the game, don't get in the game. That game includes coups and people hating, people even saying very nasty things about newspapers, saying nasty things about you. That is the game you are playing. And if you can't, if you can't stand the heat, don't get in there. That is the kind of kitchen you are in. Can't stand it, don't get in there. The coup didn't mess Moi. He just took advantage of it to become who he really is, a tyrant.
Okay, thanks. Nikki.
Yeah.
Nikki.
I think you're forgetting that Moi took over during the 70s, gearing towards the 80s. And if you remember, most African countries were under dictatorship rule. So I think he just followed the status quo, more or less. And if you look at Kenya's history, actually, Moi had an opportunity to make this country democratic earlier. But as Ndeve said, he used the coup as an excuse to stay in power. And I think that's as Ndeve said, actually it was just him patiently waiting to metamorphosize into his true self. That is, as Ndeve has said, a tyrant. Yeah.
Nikki, what do you think of democracy, Nikki? What's your take on democracy? Does it work? It works, but human beings are destroyed.
Well, this reminds me back to my philosophy classes. What I could say about democracy is actually is a big problem because it has certain nuances that you have to you can't generalize, or you can't look at in one point of view and think that this is the problem with democracy, or this is how we can solve issues with democracy. No, it doesn't work like that. Actually, if you look at ancient Greek, if we go back to ancient Greece and the city states, I mean, the democracy was their form of governance. And if you look at history, they usually were warmongering. They just had their own issues. And I mean, if you look at Plato's dialogues, where he speaks about Socrates' trial, I mean, Socrates was executed because of democracy, democratically. He was executed democratically because he lost the vote by, I don't know, 4%. And if you look at how he wrote it, if you look at what Plato wrote, what he saw was that democracy cannot work, is not practical, because you need people who can think for the better. You need people who think for the greater good, for the future. You see, and by virtue of democracy, by virtue of its definition, it allows the majority to pick to have their say, and the minority. I mean, sorry, it lets the majority to have their way and the minority to have their say. And most often than not, history has shown us that the majority are often dumb. I mean, look at the laws that people have repealed since the dawn of the Hammurabi eye for an eye towards the civil rights movement. Look at Kenya repealing the Section 2A. I mean, if you look at all these trends, it's often an idea is planted, and then numbers coalesce around this idea. The ones who take up the majority then follow up or the democratic process. But personally, I think democracy is what I can say is uh, democracy is usually conflicted or confused with politicking, because politics and democracy are two different things. What I can say is politics is what we use to engage our interests. But democracy is a form of governance. So you see, you look at politics and then you look at governance. So democracy is on the side of governance. The unfortunately, currently, most people think that politics and democracy are one and the same, or dictatorship and politics are one and the same, when they are two different things. So I would say that democracy currently, it has a problem. Pointing out a big problem about democracy is the ignorance of the majority, or what I can say is conformity. So the masses always conform. So even if something is good for them, they won't quickly change it, because the masses always go around what the majority. So maybe if we change how we think, if we change our methods of thinking, if we change our thought process, if we change how we look at politics and how we look at governance, maybe there's a case for democracy being a better option. But so far, I mean, if we look at the current world today, democracy, we can say, hasn't given us much to think about in terms of governance. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks, Nikki. Nikki, very quickly, what's your take on monarchy and oligarchy in a few words? What do you think about them, monarchy and oligarchy? What's your take?
Well, monarchy is bullshit, because it presupposes there's a special breed, or there's a special bloodline that has been ordained by someone. Nikki, Marada. There's a special blood, I would say family that has been ordained to rule over people for an infinite or a finite number of years. So I think that's bullshit. I don't quite take much interest in it, and I think those monarchies that are still there today are more or less for, I would say, are more or less for show rather than for practical uses. And then in terms of oligarchy, I mean, look at Russia. I mean, in as much as we don't know much about it, I mean, who wants to? I mean, who wants their country to look like Russia? No one. I mean, the oligarchs are only there to enrich themselves, and they do this by what? By controlling economic principles. They control the economic environment, the economic thoughts. You see, and they do this, and then they trick the masses into believing that were it not for these people, our economy would probably be more or less worse than it is. But if you look at it deeply, they're just stealing from their nation's resources. I would say oligarchy is more or less. I would say oligarchy is like communism, but with kings. That's what I would coin it. It's like communism, but with kings. Yeah. So oligarchy is just another worse form of governance. So I don't even care about it also. Thank you.
Okay, Nikki, 2 minutes. How about being a dictatorship? Can you tell your work, being a dictator? Does it work?
Well, there are pros and cons of dictatorship. But if you look at the pros and cons, the cons obviously outweigh the pros. Because one pro of dictatorship is economic. The economy is developed, or not the economy, the country is developed faster. But this development is only for aesthetic purposes. It's not really practical, because it doesn't hold. When that person leaves office, then everything crumbles. So it's just only for aesthetic purposes. So dictatorship is a non-starter. I mean, dictatorship is like having faith. The way we have, the way the religious have faith in God, have absolute faith in God. It's the same way as dictatorship is people having absolute faith in man and thinking that this man will not be infallible, which is one of the biggest mistakes that you can ever do in terms of governance. So only dictatorship is, I think, one of the worst forms of governance. I won't even advocate for it, even if, let's say, my worst enemy is in a country where the dictatorship happens. I won't want to wish something like that upon them. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Nikki. Eugene? Eugene, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. Yeah. So yeah. Just just an add on. I had actually 10 more points, or maybe I tried to save one time. Yeah. I think Nick did well to highlight the advantages and disadvantages of whether it's dictatorship and whether it's democracy. Though I'd also like to add a little bit few. I think to me, an ideal society should have a bit of, a mixed system, because in as much as we know some of the good side of each and the bad side of each, there are times that we can actually be able to switch. For instance, and even this can boil down to why we evolve even this system in the first place. So when it comes to monarchy, I think it's the oldest system mankind had, and it served its function. It's not that it was entirely useless, though it's useless now. That's why I talked about, some of these systems we should do away with and evolve towards something better, something else. Now, when it comes to monarchy made sense back then, because you really had to have, protect your lands, protect your people, your family, and everything. So to have one family being ordained to rule over the others, because perhaps the founder of that family was some warrior who protected the village. So it sort of made sense why monarchy evolved. However, right now we are not in those days. So yes, I agree very much that we should do away with it. When it comes to something like democracy also made sense. It made sense back then. But right now, I'd say it's useless, completely useless. It made sense because when we had societies growing in numbers, in population, we ended up with a population where everyone in a society had to have a say. For instance, I think Nick talked about what they did to Socrates. In Athens, it was known as an ostracism vote, where people can vote you out to they can actually vote for you to die, or they can vote to expel you from the village or the society. It's called ostracism. So yes, it made sense then. But right now, it doesn't make sense because everyone has money. I mean, not everyone, a few have money. So the people in power can bribe the illiterate, the uneducated, to push agendas that even them, they don't know what's going on. And we've seen this in our country. We've seen the parliament being bribed, to pass laws that even you, the common wananchi, you have no idea of, but you end up being told that there are some laws. If you do this, it's a crime, and you're shocked because you weren't involved. Someone somewhere was supposed to represent you, but they got bribed. So they passed, and we call ourselves a democracy. Do you see the fallacy in that? So now, when it comes to dictatorship as well, dictatorship also has its own downside, yeah, and it's not relevant right now. It's relevant in some occasions, but not always. When you look at in terms of crisis, in terms of war, it's actually the best during such a time, and that's also why we ended up with dictators shortly after some wild crisis or some genocide or something of the sort, because we had to have a strong man or a strong woman who had to come in power, tone down on the warlords, try to force order, try to do away with the dissenting voices or try to make fast decisions to save the country or to save the military or to save the population. So it made sense. Now you can't really try to imagine when you're in a crisis or a war and you want democracy to work. Number one, it wastes time. Before you vote, you will be overrun by the enemy. You will actually be killed. So it actually makes sense why, in terms of war and crisis, dictators are known to rise. That's where they thrive because it makes sense. So yeah, but in a relatively stable society, like I can say if I can just say the Nordic countries, I can't say Kenya. The Nordic countries, it makes sense why they are democratic because they are stable. They have all the time, they have, and again, those people are, they have high literacy rates. So people can actually make informed decisions. So it makes sense. But look at not us, but look at Africa in general, yeah. Um, where we are still battling with, literacy levels. We are still battling with, what's this called, civil knowledge, or is it civic knowledge and all that? So, or civic education, sorry. So while we are battling with this, and I think you'd see why it doesn't make sense to, vouch for democracy in such a setting, because these people who aren't that well informed, they can easily be manipulated. And the sad bit is that they are the majority. So it will actually be a tyranny of numbers. So you are there alone, and the majority are, people who can be easily manipulated. So even if you have a leader, or you think you should have a better leader, but the majority are manipulated to have a work leader. So you can see nothing makes sense at all. So I think for a better society, it should be able to adjust itself. For instance, not that I'm anticipating for war, but in case of a crisis, to me, dictatorship makes sense because it saves on time, it makes decisions quick and all that, but it shouldn't be permanent. When it comes to democracy, again, I think Nick talked about it. So yeah, but I'm still sticking on algocracy is actually my best, and it's actually high time we move towards it and do away with democracy, monarchy, dictatorship, and all these obsolete modes of governance. I'd say algocracy is the way to go.
Thanks, Eugene. Eugene, quick question. If you had to choose between military and civilian government, what would you choose? Between military and civilian, what would you choose?
It will actually depend because, again, there are some instances where we have a failing civilian government that literally really fails and people actually suffer for it. And for a military leader to take charge, it can actually go either way. The lives of the citizens can actually get worse, or can actually get better. Look, for the case of Traore, I think, yeah, someone might call him a dictator or a benevolent dictator, but you should see why we had such a person to come and do away with the clowns who are in power, who are so-called democratic, the corrupt, the elites who consolidate power in themselves. They don't care about the monarchy. So you see, such a society, that's how societies are. That's how they are. They shouldn't be static. When you have a failing civilian president, it actually makes sense why he will be ousted by someone in the military. But now it depends. This person who ousts him, is he better or worse? If he is better, then it's all good. There's nothing wrong. You can call him a junta or you can call him whatever names, but if the citizens are happy and their lives have improved, you really have no say about it, right? But again, if this new military leader comes into power, it can go either way. If for example, if it's someone like Idi Amin, you see, what happened in Uganda? There was a time Uganda had a period of coups and coups and coups. You take over the government, someone comes and then throws you out, kills you, and then there was a time it was going that way. So, and it never went the Traore way. They actually had Idi Amin, and he actually drove the country to hell. Yeah. So it's not really a guarantee that military leaders are 100% good. They can be good, they can be bad. Same way, it's not really a guarantee that civilian leaders are good. They can be shitty leaders, they can be good leaders. So it depends on a lot of things.
Okay, thanks. Deve.
I have a quick question for everyone to think about. Do you think that if we had good civic education, just anybody can rule over us? The dictators, the monarchies, the oligarchs. If we had good civic education, do you think? Do you think then the failure is with the lead, is with the sheep, not with the wolves? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. In fact, now that's going to solutions. Solutions. Like for me, some solutions are paying leaders less salaries. You know, these guys make too much money. Presidents, politicians, governors, they make so much money. So guys go there to get rich, not to work. So my idea is that if money is a bit less, go there to
Sorry if
work.
I
Not just
jumped, Yuki. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I jumped to the to the conclusion. I'm sorry. Okay,
no. It's okay. Yeah. For me, if they are paid a bit less, I think they can work more. But now they get so much money, so they go to get rich. So for me, a solution is to make the money less. Even for presidents, make the money less, so that you know you're going to do a job. Then also showing progress. If you're in job, you promise this, there should be a progress made after maybe a month or 2 months. What are you doing? How much have you done? If you make a promise, is a promise real, or you're just talking? So there should be somebody to follow up on the yeah.
How to make the money less, because they are already paying very little.
Who? Politicians are paid little. Presidents, governors.
Like president is given just 1 million, when
That's
a CEO
little.
of a small company is given 2 million.
Then why do they fight Stano to go there? Why do they fight so much? They campaign to go there for what? Stano, it's the job. It's the money, not the job.
That is the thing that we need to address, because it's not about the salary. Salary is very small, they are given. So they have another agenda there.
Which agenda, Stano? Which one? Is it about power?
For me, I think it's corruption. And to get the power to control the young business, or to get more connection about for the self-gain business.
So, Stano, are you saying they earn little money? Are you saying these guys earn, the money they earn is little? Stano, it's little money they earn, really? Because if you're poor, if you come from a poor family, then you want to be a governor or a politician. Is that money little, Stano?
Yeah, I'm saying that because you find someone is resigning the work where he is given a salary of 2 million to come and divide for MP, where you'll be earning only 500,000, half a million. So that means he's not coming to fight for MP because of that salary, but there is something behind the scene. The same case with the president. He may have many business, but he decided not to concentrate on his business or the work that he was doing before, just to be given that seat of president, to be given just 1 million, 1.3 million.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's new to me anyway. Okay, fine. Then also like David is saying, education, civic education, even things like tribalism. Like for Kenyans, I think in schools there, in the primary level, they should be told tribe is nothing. This thing of tribe is a joke. We're the same. Because during elections, tribalism really affects Kenyan politics. It's a big joke. So I don't know what do you guys think. Tribalism and leaders who make promises, we should follow up on their promises. You said you do this, are you doing it? What's the progress? Okay, Jim.
Okay, now let me start first with the issue of payment. I agree with Stano. It's not about the money that the MPs are paid. Because I remember, like, I think it was Jalas who said, no, was it Jalas? Yeah, I think Jalas and MC Jesse even, they say they spent over 30 million to campaign for position of MP. Now, 30 million, if you're going to spend that on campaign, even the 5 years that you're going to be the MP of that area, you're not going to be paid 30 million. You're going to get less. So it's not about the pay that is enticing them to be to be MPs. So yes, it's all about the money. Now about civic education. Okay, now that's another problem that I don't know how to put it. We do not need civic education because democracy it's just a terrible thing. It's something that should just die and get buried. You know, who is going to teach civic education? I mean, who does not know, the qualities of a good leader? I think even a primary school kid knows what a good leader should be. But when it comes to democracy, when you're voting, you start becoming emotional. You start now becoming tribal. And Kenyans are not even tribal. It's only that these politicians have made us to think tribal. We only talk of tribalism when it comes to politics. In any other, um, day-to-day life, we don't. I mean, it's not an issue. When you go to school, you don't care who your teacher is. You don't care the head teacher of your kid's school. You don't care who the shopkeeper is, the tribe they come from. It's only when it comes to leadership, these guys have convinced us, hey, we have to put Mtuwetu, and that Mtuwetu happens to be them. That's the only, it's this democracy that is bringing up tribalism. So about civic education, we do not need civic education. Everyone knows what is right and what is wrong, but democracy has this thing of making us use emotions, and it's civic education is like someone has died, and then you start discussing which medicines should we give him. Is it Panadol? Is it Maramoja? No, just bury the guy, is dead. Same thing with democracy. It's rotten to the core. We just need to bury it and get rid of it. Let's read about it in history, the way we read about monarchies and all, and prophets and the religion. Yeah, because civic education, who's going to teach it? Because I mean, if even the very
1 minute, 1 minute, yeah, 1 minute, yeah, 1 minute,
yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just complete, finish, just finish.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Let me just finish. Okay. Even the very educated people, they still elect bad leaders. We've seen even teachers going to Kasongo and singing, clapping for him, and all this manner of crazy behavior. And they're very educated people. So we don't need civic education. We just need to bury democracy. Yeah, that's it.
Nikki, your hand was up. Nikki, your hand was up.
Yes, it was. I got tired of raising my hand. Sorry. No pun intended.
You got tired. You got tired.
What I would want to say is, like Jimmy's pointer, I don't think civic education is enough. I mean, it's maybe a portion of it, but it's not enough because it takes. I would say it takes a lot of introspection. You see, to look at yourself in the mirror and see that you're wrong, and then try to reevaluate and make something or make a better decision. If I would say, I won't make it as a benchmark, but if you look at communist China, post-communist China, what the party is doing right now, in terms of governance, I think that's the most ideal. I mean, let's not get into their moral whatever reflections and stuff and everything, but if you look at China, more or less that's how leadership should be. It should be there's a clear separation of power, and then that maybe that power group aligns with the country's or the nation's vision, maybe long term, short term, which looks out for I would say sustainability. The problem with democracy has a lot of feelings in it, has a lot of sensitivities. which if you are a struggling nation that wants to develop, will hold you back a lot. I mean, a major reason as to why African countries aren't developed is because of their governance systems. I mean, democracy, forget dictatorship and oligarchy. Democracy is killing Africa because you want to do this, someone has an opinion, someone goes to court, or the court stops, something else happens, or the majority are not in line with something that will be that will be better for people in the future. So I think civic education not enough. We need, I think, we need a national consciousness and people who are ready to take it up and lead to wherever good it might go through. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nikki. Stano, how much time? Stano, how much time do we have left? Stano, how much time? Okay, Eugene, go. Eugene, just go.
Right. So yeah, I think I agree with Nick that civic education is not enough, and I also agree with you, Muriuki, on the point which you said that part of the problem we have in our democracy right now is the fact that we overpay these politicians or these leaders. So that's how you end up with the most controversial and scurrilous individuals who want to get in power and having a bonus point of a criminal record just behind them, whether it's scandals, whether it's corruption, whether it's graft and all that. So the next time you say MPs are to be paid this, so of course you will attract such individuals. And this is how you end up with such crooked individuals who are running in power. Like for instance, this guy, this one-time guy, I think it was in 2022. He had actually some graft cases. I think still millions of money, and you would still imagine why we still have issue of corruption in power. It won't really go away because part of the problem is the fact that we overpay our politicians, our leaders. It doesn't really help. So these are the same people who will get into power. They will make education even more expensive so that anyone else can't be educated as them. So they will actually rule over the illiterate, not because people are willingly illiterate, but because getting education will be hard. They will actually make it less valid, make it worthless. You see, that's why we are having lecturers strike going on. While it goes on, you see them handing over cash as bribes, as tokens. So it's really wild, and this is part and parcel of the problem. And again, that's not the only problem. I think our constitution is also the problem. Because when you look at it this way, we have the lawmakers. The lawmakers are the same MPs. So yes, while in Kenya we can pass law through other ways like referendum, which again is costly. It takes time. It's a process, and we have these legislators coming into parliament and then voting their weird bills into law, which are sense, and then they one time sign them into law. So it's actually a farce. In actual sense, in as much as they talk about referendum, the last referendum we had, I think it will even be the last referendum we will ever have to change laws. Because if you want to tax the MPs, the people who are going to allow them being taxed is the same MPs. So you want to tell me that they will allow themselves to be taxed? So you want to tell me they would allow the same people who make laws, you want to tell me they would allow to have their salaries being cut? Because yes, and I agree with Muriuki's point. You see, if we imagine a country where we had MPs who are paid at least 30,000, 30,000, it's little, but you can live with 30,000, man. Like, your whole job is to just go there, represent our views, sit or sleep or nap, because most of them actually nap, or most of them talk about irrelevant things that don't even represent the people who they are meant to represent, but they earn big money. So if you want to make them earn 30,000 or even 20,000, because these people have lots of allowance. So, and they're the same people who are going to pass laws to reject it. They will shoot it down. So it's like that. They won't change unless we have a total regime change, a total change from ground up. and that's not going to happen anytime soon. So there's a lot going on, a lot going on than just civil or civic education. So I think the only way you can do away with that is to just, do away with everything and then start again with something totally different, with laws that are meant to, serve the people, with salaries being cut to reduce to be something reasonable, because that's how you prevent people from going into power to make more money and being even more corrupt, because it's not going to end anytime soon. Yeah, I think I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. Stanu, are you there? Stanu, how much time? Stanu, how much time do you have left?
I think we should end by 10, but you can extend maybe if you have many issues, you can extend to 15, to 10, 15. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, Deve, go. Deve. Debe.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking without having unmuted myself. Yes, so I know, well, civic education and education is not the same thing. Hata kama mtu akiwa a university professor, they also need to be plugged in, to be engaged in what is happening in Maralal and what is happening down in Mariakani in the Coast Province. People need to be plugged in into their country, into what is happening in their country. If, for example, what used to happen was the Central Province got a lot of development. They built schools, they did all these things, Kenyatta time, even Moi time, Kibaki time. But the people of the provinces, let me just say the people of the provinces where or areas which were being developed did not worry about other parts of the country not being developed. That is lack of civic education, or rather being plugged in into the system, into the whole country. That if my sisters in Maralal are not getting an education, I should not be thumping my chest down in Makueni that we have so many schools and good roads, and somebody in Maralal, it's like they don't deserve those roads because why? So that is what I'm talking about, being plugged in, having civic education. Maybe it is not a civic education, it could be the heart. Maybe people should have the heart. We might be calling it civic education, but it is the heart. Yeah, so that is one thing. Now, the other thing is that we did come to who can now qualify to help us dig ourselves out of
the heart. You mean the heart? You mean by heart? Just explain
the heart. Yeah, the heart and the empathy of thinking of my fellow citizen, thinking of my fellow citizen in Maralal or my fellow citizen in Makueni, where there is no water and they've been needing water forever. And so I remember when I worked with somebody from the Rift Valley, and the empathy he had for the people in Makueni is that we danced all the way to the dry areas. Yeah, some empathy. But if you are not plugged in to understand what is the problem of somebody in the North Rift, it is cattle rustling. We managed to solve cattle rustling in Makueni between ourselves and our friends in Kajiado. What did we do? We could import, or we could export that one over to North Rift and tell them, guys, we don't need to do this thing. We don't need cattle rustling. We don't need this kind. So all I'm saying is that probably having a heart means what is happening in another part of the country is our issue too. We should be concerned about that. We should want a solution for that problem. The other thing is, you'll dance for less. Okay. The other thing is the pay, or rather the salary that a leader gets. I don't think that it's going to change who that person is. You can give that, you can open all the treasury to that person. It's not going to change anything. That person is just going to, and another person who is just satisfied, wherever they are like Kasungu. Not Kasongo, there's a difference between Kasungu and Kasongo. If wametosheleza na kile kitu wako nayo, hata wafungulie the treasury, they are not going to steal. So now I think that's part of just our knowing the person that we have elected. And if we need to not pay these people anything, you tell them, okay, you are willing to serve, and all you get is $1 or rather a shilling a year. If you're willing to serve as president, come. Now, the one of equating a president with a CEO of a company, that is so wrong, because the CEO of a company, you know what they do? They actually produce stuff. Now, I'm not saying that a president of a country is not in charge of things. He's in charge of things, but not in the way a CEO of a company is in charge. They produce goods and services, unlike a government. A government provides services to people, does not produce any goods. A CEO of a company, they actually produce goods and services. So there's a very big difference. So you cannot say because a CEO gets paid this one and a president is in charge of a country, they should be. No, he does not provide anything. He provides services. He makes sure that services are provided. He's not even a doctor, but he is in charge of making sure the services are provided by the Ministry of Health, and the money is the money that comes from the people's taxes, and you are giving back that money to provide health to those people. It is their money. It is not money that the president may got it made. He did not get it made. He did not even create anything bad, but he can be in charge of policies because the institutions are there to do that kind of thing. Okay, thank you. Kwa hivyo waende hapo with 1 shilling a year. If you are willing to serve, 1 shilling a year, go in there and serve us. It is a service. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. In fact, I saw somebody somewhere, a Muzungu, a politician. He had a bicycle. He used to go to work with a bicycle, and alikuwa Mzungu. I can't remember which country it was, but he used to serve the people with a bicycle. Okay, fine.
I think it is Denmark. I think it is Denmark. Yeah.
It's Denmark, eh? Yeah, that's somebody that's very impressive. That's somebody serious with his job. Okay, so now as we close, Sir George Morgan, as we close, any closing remark? Sir George. Sir George, are you there? As we close. Okay, fine. Okay, Jim. Okay, closing remarks, Jim, and then Eugene. Then Stano, we close. Jim.
Okay, so as we close, I'll try to be very brief. I'm hoping I will finally convince you guys to, stop being pro-democracy. One of the things the biggest problem with the democracy, especially in Kenya, and I think in much of Africa, the reason we get the leaders we have, the Akina Sonkos, the Sudis, all these guys, the White Jews, and even Kasongos, it's the problem starts in the party nominations. So what happens is if you are in, let's say, an UDA zone or on DM zone, you are pretty sure, almost guaranteed that if you get that ticket, you're going to be elected. So what happens, I have had experience of trying to go for party nominations. There was a friend who was vying for MCA. You see this Gunzi that you see demonstrating with bocos and the motorbikes. Those are the people who go to vote in nominations, in the party nominations. So if you're in Jubilee zone, you get like motorbike guys and some other drunkards, makang, like very rough looking people. Those are the ones who are going to vote for you, to nominate you, and they intimidate anyone who is not with them. So that's why you find it's the thugs who get their fellow thugs nominate them in the party. So when they get the party ticket, now the decent people like Akina Muriuki and Dorcas and all these other guys who believe in democracy, now you go and start saying, me, I want CG, ODM zone, because I like Baba, I'm going to vote 6 piece. Then you end up with these weird characters who are voted in, nominated by the goons in motorbikes and those guys. Hapo ndio shida inakuaga. So you think there's nothing you're choosing. You're just choosing a thug, an ODM thug versus an UDA thug versus a Jubilee thug. That's why I do not vote. I didn't vote last time. I don't plan on voting in 2027. It's just a waste of time and it's a circus that I cannot be part of. So hii mwende mchague mwenye mtachagua. I just pambana with my hali yangu. Yeah, that's it.
Jim, even for Gen Z, you don't vote. If there's a Gen Z, you won't vote Jim.
No, I cannot vote. They are not even vying. Like now we have by elections in Malava and Beere, and where these Gen Zs, we're only seeing Sijikwa Mabende and Karish and these UDA and DP parties, where these Gen Zs, they're not vying. When you try to vie Akina Morara and Akina Mwangi, Boniface Mwangi, they even these Gen Zs start attacking their fellow Gen Zs and the millennials at where una pesa sijui nini. So it's just a circus that I cannot participate in. By the way, I went for maandamano two times, but I can never go for maandamano. I can never go to vote. You just participate in whatever you're participating. Me, I just accept matokeo.
Sir, thanks. Eugene, a closing remark.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to how a country does politics, I think it's really weird. I think we overdo the politics. And when we even talk about the Nordic countries, you see, the Nordic countries are so good that I don't even know any of their political parties' names. But I'm pretty sure if I was in the Nordic countries, and yes, I would have had maybe somewhere UDA, Kasongo, ODM, and such, because we have a tendency of doing more politics than any other thing, than development, than anything. And it's actually been shown that when a country starts to over politicize or starts to engage in politics extremely, development now starts to lag behind. You see, and that's the thing about the democratic bullshit we have in Kenya, right? Because every party now wants to, and the way these parties they are run like cartels, they are run like gangs. Like it's weird, yeah. And funny enough, they are funded by the taxpayers' money. So I don't know who passes. Yeah. I think I know who passes these laws. Yeah, they are supposed to represent us, but they pass these stupid laws anyway. But you can't do anything about it, right? Now, when it comes to voting, I don't know what to say about that because I partly agree with what Jim is saying. Like, yeah, because it's like you're in a swimming pool, right? And you're not alone in the swimming pool. You're like 10, 20 people in the crammed up swimming pool. And everyone is paying in the pool except you. Now, when everyone is paying in the pool except you, they now start to blame you for why are you not peeing? Like you're not being patriotic. You should also pee. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying that when it comes to how we vote in Kenya, right? Everyone has their lead of choice, the one that they're going to vote for, including people who have been manipulated, people who have been bribed, the majority who are mostly don't have that well-informed decision of the leader they're going to, but they're just, they're going to vote because ni mtu wao, or maybe they're speaking their language, or maybe he's in power for long, so it's a familiar face. These are the stupid grounds people vote leaders for. If you just take your time and ask around, like if for instance you ask around why people love this certain politician, it's not that the politician gives them food 24/7. It's because it's a familiar face, number one. Number two, it's the same guy who has been lying to them since 1990 something up to now. So there's nothing he's putting on the table, and he knows this. That's why they will even go and call them kingpins. That's the most stupid term I will hear Kenyan tell me about a politician. Call them a kingpin. It already shows how they're degrading themselves. They're making themselves subject to unscrupulous politicians. Like, why will you even think of them? They're your servants, man. And why will you even call them Heshmiwa? Like, they're your servant. It's like someone comes and builds road and in your area, and then you clap for them and thank them. Yet it's your right to have such infrastructure. When someone brings electricity in your home, you clap for them, and then you say, "Oh, he's a good leader. He remember." That's your right. It's like, it's stupid. It's pretty stupid. But unfortunately, that's the mindset of the majority in Kenya. Like, people don't know what they want, they don't know their rights. So you end up treating these politicians who are meant to be your servants as kings, just because they have a fan base. So it's really stupid, and I think it's really dark. It's a dark trajectory in the country, and I don't know how we will get out of it anyway. But they say it's part of being human is to be hopeful. So let's hope for the best anyway. That's what I can say.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. And I think my closing remark is I wish they could make it 20K or 30K, like Eugene said. For the politicians, they get the money is just 30K a month or 20K. Then we see what happens. Yeah, okay, Stanley, you can close. Thanks. Stanley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So thank you all for that contribution and a very nice and interesting topic. I think we can repeat this topic another time because they have much detail that we have not yet dealt with. But thank you all for that.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night, Joe.